Jacob. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm doing well. Nice to see your face. I always talk to these avatars in cyberland, and like with you, I do different platforms, and you're never quite sure. Once you sort of see a face, and even via Zoom talk to someone, it begins to cement it in. So
Yeah, that's funny. That's actually part of what I was gonna say. I watch so much of your videos and I stalk you on all your social medias and stuff. So it really feels like I know you in ways that like, you know, oh, well, of course, Paul,
yeah,
and it's very strange, especially because, I think we have this thing where we watch videos. I certainly watch your videos in ways where I kind of feel like, okay, so Paul says this, and then I say to him this. And so in my mind, I've had a lot of conversations with you, right? Which of course you were never part of. Um, and that's part of the thing. Like I thought is going to be really weird here. I made a bunch of notes about things I wanted to say, and one of them that was that it's like it almost feels like I'm having a one-way conversation with you, and now talking to you, you have no idea uh, did, what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Did my video just go off?
Yeah, it does. Your camera goes in and out for some reason.
I don't know why. This is the first time this has happened to me.
What kind of a computer are you using?
It's a Dell.
Oh,
I don't know why it's turning on and off like that.
is there? Oh, the
This is the
HP's
first
have.
time this has happened.
Is it a separate webcam on the PC,
No,
or is it
it's
integrated?
integrated into it's part of the thing. Yeah, I
Oh,
don't know why. There it went again.
yeah.
That's not good. Well, I mean, people don't want to see my face anyway.
Well, I mean, most people listen to these conversations much more than watch them. So don't be too worried about it. We can. Then some people don't even turn their webcams on, so it's not too bad of a
Yeah,
thing.
but what I've found is actually when you're talking to someone with it's a new thing I found out. It
Yeah,
really does communicate a lot better
yeah.
with facial expressions and stuff. That was another thing I was gonna say. I I don't want to be disrespectful because I respect you a lot. I
Don't worry
really
about it.
do. I really, really
I'm
do.
really
And I
hard
have
to
to
offend. Trust me. Keep going.
and I have to say that because I am the type of person who like part of the reason I really like Eric Weinstein is, you know, he's willing, he likes these people who aren't willing to put up with bullshit.
Yeah.
And that's enough. You know what? Let me do my thing so that I get all the stuff I want to get out, and then we'll have a great discussion. Okay.
Okay.
So interesting things you might. I wanted to let you know. My family still speaks Aramaic.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So my grandmother died last year, but some of our family still speaks Aramaic. When I was in yeshiva, I learned some. Obviously, I'm Jewish. When I was in yeshiva, I learned enough so that I can kind of understand when they're speaking.
Mhm.
But this video thing is going to kill me. This
Do
whole
you
thing.
want to reboot? Reboot might fix it.
Okay, let me reboot.
Okay, I'll pause. All right. We'll see if that works.
Yeah, it made me. There was an update, which once I logged out, it asked me to update Zoom. So I think that's probably it. Okay, so so obviously I'm Jewish. One thing I want to make a shameless plug. I have a YouTube video channel where I help people make help people use online tools to translate the Hebrew Bible to
Ooh.
English themselves. So completely free tools on the internet. You don't have to believe me, or you don't have to take my, it's just helping people do that themselves. And so if anybody's interested, the best
Send
way,
me the link,
I will.
and I'll put it up with the video.
Great, thank you. And
I endorse that. I endorse that project.
so yeah, I mean, most of the there are brief introductions and stuff, but most of the videos is me going through actual letter by letter with people, right? So if there's a particular verse, nobody's going to watch all my content. My hope is that one day somebody may want to know a particular verse and decide to come and look, and I might be some help there. One thing about me, my woo thing, my strange belief, which gets people really anxious, even when I was part of the Hasidic community, and I kind of to some extent still am, but one thing that got even those people kind of weirded out. I honestly believe in the coming of the Messiah. Like, I'm not joking about this, right? And that scares people. It really does. Even Orthodox Jews, they're like, well, yeah, we believe in the coming of the Messiah, but it's we don't believe it. um, and that's the main thing I eventually want to talk to you about. I want to get through this stuff. One thing I really, it gets me about Dawkins. I was listening to him, and he's like, if we took the Bible seriously, we would have slavery and we would be stoning and it's like, you know what? I know people in the Hasidic community, and trust me, if it said jump off a bridge, they would jump off a bridge. No questions. Oh, not again. No ifs, buts about it. If it said jump off a bridge, that's exactly what they would do. And I would like to think that's exactly what I would do. I would like to think that, right? So, like, no, I take the Bible incredibly seriously, right? And that's the one thing that really gets me is a lot of people, like, they either they actually don't believe it. This is one of the reasons I really like you, because watching your conversations, either you're a great actor, which if you are, you really should move down to Los Angeles if you're this good of an actor, or you actually seriously take this stuff seriously, which amazingly very few people do. Lots of people claim they do, but very few people do. So the stuff I wanted to talk to you about, do you read the Babylon Bee?
I see it on Twitter usually.
Oh, I live by the Babylon Bee. That is the newspaper you need to read every day. So they're a little harsh on Calvinists. Like, I'm a little harsh on Calvinists. I love Calvinists. I really do. I think on the Discord I said, oops, sorry. On the Discord I said, Calvinists are the people I disagree with the most that I actually take seriously, like that I actually have respect for, right? And I really mean that. I disagree completely with pretty much everything, but I have respect. So read the Babylon Bee and read their Calvinist stuff. They're really harsh on Calvinists. It's in a loving way.
How do you read it? Just on on their website or something? Because
they have a website. I usually look at their Facebook feeds because they on their Facebook feed they also have they bring up their old articles which are particularly relevant, and amazingly their satire in about every 6 months kind of comes true.
That's the world we're living in right now.
It is. You mentioned a couple of times your family's Jewish.
So what happened was my father died in 2013. About a year before he died, that's when my aunt was still alive too. She died in 2016 or 2017. A year before, or 2019. Wow, a year 2018. A year before my father died, my aunt had a relative of ours who had a friend who was a genealogist who did my father's side of the family, the genealogy, and we'd always had a rumor that there was some Jewish connection to us, but the genealogist came back and said, no, you're really Jewish. And it's like, really? And so these genealogists, they always do kind of connection to who, what famous people you're actually related to.
Right.
I'm related to the Marx Brothers.
You know what? That that is great. So it's on your father's side of the family.
It's on my father's side. And so because of the Holocaust, there's good genealogical records. And so the farthest back that I could get back was in the Netherlands to the 17th century.
Okay.
And so it was quite clear you had the Jewish sort of the patronymic system. The names just keep going back and forth and back and forth. And then in the 19th century, something happened. I don't know what. And my great-great-grandfather sent my great-grandfather to Western Michigan. And we sort of became Dutch Calvinists.
Right. So
I don't know what caused this, but that's what happened.
this is something that actually we've been finding out a lot in the Jewish community, especially with DNA. We never really thought that Jews were passing into, or that people were converting into Judaism. Like, so my family's from Iran. I was born in Tehran. I did my DNA testing. My mom's family is Irish. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh, yeah. Expulsion of 1300 from Ireland. The Jews were expelled. Her family apparently ended up in Spain during the Inquisition, ended up in the Ottoman Empire, ended up in Iran. Yeah.
Wow.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to get too much into this because I have so little time with you.
Well, we could do it again.
Okay.
We'll find time.
So the word parhesia, do you know that word?
No.
Okay. So I recently found out that Pope Francis has been making a big deal of the word parhesia. It's a word that shows up in the Christian Bible, in the Greek Bible, and
Oh, you're talking Greek.
It's Greek. Yes.
Perusia?
Parhesia. Well, in Hebrew, see, this is the thing. It's also a word that's very prominent in Jewish thing. Parrhesia, and it's actually in the Catholic Catechism. It's defined with I think the Lord's Prayer or something like that. So it means literally free speech. And it is just such an important concept today. And I was so shocked to see its prominence in Christianity because it's something that I've really been struggling with within Judaism. And I just wanted to bring it up because I really believe this is a word that really speaks to the zeitgeist of today, right? It's not necessarily what I wanted to talk to you about, but it's what I want to let you know about the word parhesia. I want to ask you about the word poured out when Jesus talks about the wine of the Eucharist. I don't know anybody who's a Greek expert. One of the things, and this is the main thing I want to talk to you about. Very recently, within a couple of weeks ago, I've always had one particular belief which kind of put me out of Orthodox Judaism. Other than that, I fully subscribe to the 13 principles of faith. I came to a belief that not within Orthodoxy, but within Reform and Conservative Judaism, they would say I'm no longer Jewish. They would say I'm a Christian now. Which at the same time is not a belief that I think the vast majority of Christians would say I'm a Christian now. Which is, and it was based on, one of the big things was reading about the Eucharist and this word poured out that he uses. So I don't know how familiar you are with the Seder, but
Not very.
Unfortunately, honestly, I mean, over the past 2 weeks, I've really been struggling with this, and one of the things that I've really found is which has been faith affirming for me, is it's almost like the Seder was created in a way to help me understand this moment. And so during the Seder, there's a lot of wine we drink. There are the 4 cups. The wine almost nobody really talks about, and I always, it's almost a folk thing, which again within Judaism lots of people don't talk about it, but I've always had a really strong connection to, is the wine we pour out, as in spill. And I've been trying to, so all 3 of the synoptic gospels use the same word, and I've been trying to figure out this word. So if you can pull out your Bible software or whatever it is, it seems to me that Jesus was talking about the wine we spill. Not the wine we pour to drink, but the wine we spill.
Huh.
And to me, that changed everything. It completely changed everything. And this is where the disrespect comes in. I have always thought of Christianity as a separate religion, which I respect in its separateness.
Right.
Right? And Christians can have the beliefs that they want to have, and I have the beliefs that I have, and Muslims have the beliefs they have, and Hindus have the beliefs they have.
Right.
And what changed that for me is I have come to believe that Jesus was Mashiach ben Yosef. I don't know if you've ever even heard of Mashiach ben Yosef. Not Mashiach ben David. I don't think he was Mashiach ben David. I have come to the strong belief, and this is something that, it's strange. Like, somebody wrote a book, Messiah, son of Joseph, I believe is the name of the book, and it goes through all the rabbinic stuff about it. And it's not that I didn't know about Mashiach ben Yosef. And it's not that I didn't know about the idea that Jesus could have been Mashiach ben Yosef. Because various people there have been Orthodox rabbis who have said that either he was or he could have been Mashiach ben Yosef. In Judaism, it really doesn't matter, because if he was, that doesn't change anything. But with me and my beliefs, and especially, I don't know if you're aware of Maimonides and what he says about the coming of the Messiah. So Maimonides, obviously, a very important rabbi. What he says regarding the coming of the Messiah, there was a censored part that was censored by the Catholic Church, hundreds of years ago, very few people had access to. And obviously now where Jews live in Israel, we've stopped uncensoring things, right? And that what he says there really affected my beliefs. And again, Eric calls this the opening chess moves. You know, when you want to describe all the details to someone, but obviously someone of your caliber, you know so much more than I'm sure the people necessarily listening to us. I want to skip the opening chess moves, but I have come to believe that Jesus was actually Mashiach ben Yosef, and which makes me, and I don't mean to say this to be offensive at all. I really don't. So here it comes, and the ambulance going by.
I'm sitting down.
Yeah, okay. I feel like the apostles and the people who wrote the New Testament are like children drawing with their crayons all over my Bible. Because what I stopped doing is listening to Christians about what Jesus said, and I started reading what Jesus said. And the more I read, like, you read Paul, and I'm not a fan of Paul, right? I do not believe he was a Pharisee. I do not believe he was a student of Rabban Gamliel. I believe that's ridiculous. I believe anybody who studied Talmud would read his Pilpul, and like, I read his stuff and I just want to choke the man. It's like, no.
Well, a lot of people did. They listened to him and wanted to choke him. That's, you read the book of Acts.
Well, I mean, it's like, no. You may be trying to do, like, there's this part, he tries to do a Pilpul, right? And yes, a Pilpul is an incredibly intricate Talmudic thing that people make fun of, but it's also a very beautiful thing that somebody who's trained in a Pilpul can recognize it and see it, and honestly, it is a very beautiful thing. And watching him try to forge one, it's enraging because it's an obvious forgery, right? And the opposite of that is when I read in the actual Gospels what Jesus says, and the verses he brings, and it's like, no. This isn't someone like Paul, who's a Hellenized Greek person trying to quote. No, this is somebody who knows his Judaism, who knows. And I think this is the problem we've had within Orthodox Judaism. We've actually believed what Christians say about Jesus. And I realize that's really disrespectful. And somebody said to me, you're not a Christian, how dare you, right? Yeah. And I had to kind of say, well, aren't you coming to me and telling me that Christianity is the fulfillment of Judaism? How dare I? And if Jesus is Mashiach ben Yosef, which I have come increasingly to believe with real belief, and in my mind, that means, okay, if he's Mashiach ben Yosef, that means he's definitely not Mashiach ben David. And part of, I mean, when I came to this realization, I cried. I cried for about 2 hours. Because I started to feel Jesus was the most betrayed person in human history. And the betrayal was, in my mind, was first and foremost by his followers, who wanted him to be Mashiach ben David. And I know what that's like. right? I am kind of sort of distantly related to the Chabad movement. I don't know if you're aware of Chabad. So Chabad is part of the scandal of Chabad Hasidism in Judaism has been the messianism that when the Rebbe, who lots of people thought, and a lot of people still do, thought is the Messiah, when he died in 1994, it's left a lot of people crushed. It's left a lot of people coming up with all kinds of ways. No, he didn't actually die. There are people out there. No, he's not dead, because they can't take it, right? And so when you seriously believe in the Messiah, in the coming of the Messiah, and you see somebody who could be the Messiah, this is another thing that always got me about Christians. They keep on telling me, oh, you don't want to acknowledge Jesus as the Messiah. For 30 years, even when I was in Orthodoxy, and you're not supposed to engage with evangelists and stuff, I have been talking to Christian evangelists, trying to find a Christian who could convince me Jesus is the Messiah. I would love it. You don't understand how much, we talked about your family, just, they passed into, they became Gentiles, right? And it's like, you really think, I mean, people have this idea of being chosen. When we joke in Judaism, God, couldn't you have chosen somebody else?
That's right.
We kind of
What a gift. What a gift.
mean it.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't know if I mentioned this, but we're very uncomfortable, and I'm uncomfortable with this concept of hereditary spiritual gifts, right? And it's very, the fetishizing of Jews, especially among some evangelists, is just, I mean, when somebody says, I love the Jews, I think of, do you know do you realize that we are also human? Your gods loved people. It's like, it's philo-Semitism to me is the flip side of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you when I dressed as a Hasidic Jew, sometimes people would see. I was once in a Jewish bookstore, a small Jewish bookstore. You've been to the small corner Christian bookstores, and I'm just looking at books, and a tour bus arrived from South Korea, and they came out, and everybody was taking pictures of the Jews in their natural habitat.
It's kind of like going to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and taking pictures of the Amish.
It is. No, it very much is. It very much is. And in South Korea, they have this translation of the Talmud, what they think is the Talmud. It's the most popular book after the Bible in South Korea. Yeah, I should send you the article on this. Somebody made an abridged this is gonna kill me.
Don't worry about it.
Somebody made an abridged Talmud, and somehow it's become the most because South Koreans, a lot of them are very Christian.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are like, well, Jews seem to be successful, so why? And so there's this abridged version of the Talmud that's this big. And for people who don't know, if you do what's called Daf Yomi, which is the study of the Talmud, which if you're very well versed in Judaism, you can get through Daf Yomi within an hour a day. You do one folio page of the Talmud. It takes 7.5 years to finish. And honestly, even with my study, if I was seriously doing Daf Yomi, it would take me at least 3 hours a day, right? So study of the Talmud, people who say I've read the Talmud, it's like, no, you obviously have not. Obviously, you have no clue and have not looked at a single page of it. But so going back to this idea of hereditary spiritual gifts, it's a difficult one. It really is. But it's also a very biblical one. It is. And it's hard, and I think the Jewish people, like one of my criticisms of Orthodox Judaism is we keep on saying, it says you shall be a nation of priests, right? And we don't take that seriously. We don't. We really, really don't. Some people have started to some extent taking that a lot more seriously. But the Jewish idea for a very long time has been, you know what, you have your religion, just leave me alone and I'll leave you alone.
Yeah.
Just let me be and I'll let you be, and and this is part of what's been very difficult for me. The idea that so Obadiah 1:18 says that Israel shall house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph shall be a flame, and the house of Esau shall be as straw. And this is one of those verses that refers to Mashiach ben Yosef, right? It says, house of Joseph shall be as a flame. And the house of Esau, traditionally in Judaism, refers to Rome, right? And the idea had been that Mashiach ben Yosef would come and destroy physically Rome, right? As a military leader, he would kill them all, right? And this idea some people have, there's a part of the Seder where we say, Shvoch Hamatcha, spill out your anger on and there are Jews who really have this idea of like God's gonna come and kill them all, right? Which is absolute heresy, let me just say. But some people really do have that thing, right?
You can see why they get that idea if you read a bunch of different texts. I mean, that idea was very present. That idea has been around a long time.
Well, it's funny. If you read the Wikipedia page on Martin Luther and his anti-Semitism, so obviously they show all the stuff that he said. Yeah. But one of the earlier things he said was, well, I mean, if I had been a Jew and the Gentiles had treated me how Christians treat Jews, then I would never become a Christian.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I mean, there are all those fights. I think we need to have an honest conversation. It goes back to that concept of parhesia. We don't have honest conversations. There was an ecumenical statement that all the streams of Judaism tried to have with the Catholic Church. And the Rabbinic Council of America, which is the largest Orthodox rabbinic organization, came out and said, it's all nice, all the stuff you're saying, but you are papering over the real theological debates which made hundreds, if not thousands of Jews go into like be willing to be burned at the stake with the Shema in, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, yeah, now we can all be friends, right? And it's like, no, we can have respectful differences, but when it comes down to it, the Trinity is not monotheism. I'm sorry, you know, but and you know, people like Sam actually give me great hope that the Messiah is coming, because Unitarianism is growing, and a rejection of the Trinity is growing, and I honestly believe that's getting us closer to the Messiah. But you're not going to get me to say the Trinity is monotheism. I'm sorry, it's not. I'm sure you have your arguments, but one, not 1 in 3, not 1 in 10, not 1 in 1. This is the core of Judaism, right? And I can have a lot of respect, and I do, for many Christians, and there are Christians who do wonderful work, and this idea which Jesus said, by their fruits you shall know them, I believe is a deeply Jewish idea, and it is, you know, in the book of Samuel, David says to King Saul, as the old proverb goes, Mirasha yetzer resha, from evildoers comes evil, right? And he says, that's why I'm not going to do anything to you, right? Because even though you deserve it, I'm not going to do it, right? So this is an incredibly, by their fruits you shall know them, right? And there are Christians, as there are Muslims, who are genuine people of faith, that I could never believe God is gonna, you know, burn them in hell forever. That's not my God, right? And you said in the other way, you don't judge God. I'm sorry, I'm Jewish. We judge God. I have to stop myself from giving you too many book recommendations, but Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust. And I'm not sure if this is from that. You should definitely read that book. But there is a story from the Holocaust that in one of the concentration camps, this Jew comes up to a bunch of rabbis and says, "Rabbis, I want to take God to court." And they convene a rabbinic court, and he comes with all of his, you know, things about what God needs to do and how what he owes us. And the rabbis deliberate, and they find God guilty. He has to do these things, and then they go and say the afternoon prayers.
Just tough getting them to, it's just tough getting them to pay.
Look, this is what the word Israel means. It means wrestles with God. Yeah. And if you're not wrestling with God, don't call yourself Israel. Just don't. Just do not do it, right? This is another thing that gets me. Like, Judaism to me is only a religion. I don't care. I care somewhat if you are descended from Jews, just because there is this biblical idea of you know, tribes, and you know, each person. And what I really like is listening to you talk about the Bible. You talk with a real understanding of, you know, and part of this Mashiach ben Yosef, right? Mashiach ben Yosef, the blessing, you know, where Jacob is blessing the two sons of Joseph, and he crosses his hands. And
Right.
Joseph says, no, this is the older one. And Yaakov says, Yadati beni, yadati. I know, my son, I know. But this one, the small one,
Yeah.
and that's one of the ways we derive that Mashiach ben Yosef is going to be through the younger son Ephraim, right? So, and you see this a lot coming with it. I loved you brought up the birth of Peretz. Nobody wants to talk about the harlot at the side of the road, right? Nobody wants to talk. Yehuda, what were you doing? It's one of these stories you just don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
And people who censor their Bibles
Yeah.
just get to me. You know, I was teaching in the most Hasidic, insular. You know, I was a secular studies teacher for 6th and 7th grade at one of the most insular Jewish religious schools. And I had students who were bar mitzvah, who were 13. And their parents had not talked to them about the prohibition, which is one under the 613, the prohibition of sterilizing an animal, right?
Yeah.
And so, look, it's one of the 613, and I know what 13-year-old boys do. And yes, I could just tell them that it's a prohibition to be cruel to animals, and it is. But it's another prohibition. It's one of the 613, and here I have a bar mitzvah boy whose parents don't want to talk about one of the 613. And that was one of the things that really got to me, right? No. You don't get to censor that part. You don't. This boy is bar mitzvah. He's bar mitzvah. That means you teach him all 613, right? And that it's one of the things that really gets me. The people who censor their Bibles. I forget how we ended up on this. We were talking about spiritual gifts.
Yeah.
Right? And how yes, there is that subversion, but at the same time, Judaism is just a religion. It is just a religion.
But what do you mean by that? I'm curious. What do you mean by just a religion? I mean, where's the limitation?
Bernie Sanders does not get to, because it's convenient, talk about how he's Jewish, despite the fact he's spent his whole life as a Marxist.
Oh, I understand what you mean now. Okay.
Right? I don't believe in Jewish ethnicity because you know what? Even though my great-great-grandmother may have come from Ireland, my grandmother, who spoke Aramaic as her language, did not put locks on her bagels. And if locks on your bagels is Judaism, then you know what? I want no part of it, right? That's not who I am. So it's not an ethnicity, and it certainly is not a race. I had an acquaintance. Her apparently in the 1700s or 1800s, hundreds of years ago, some ancestor of hers had fled to the New World, ended up in Jamaica. She was a Jew. She was the only Jew around. And when she married, she taught all her daughters, we are Jewish. Jewish is matrilineal. Yes, your father is not Jewish. The children of your brothers are not Jewish. You are Jewish, and all your daughters are Jewish. And she's about I don't know, 8 generations down, she was beautiful, but as stereotypically African American as you can get, right? You could find her on the cover of Ebony magazine. On the cover, she looked black. She was African American in all her features, and um, I think she was being a little silly about this. She would get upset when people would ask her, "Well, did you convert?" She's like, "No, I was born Jewish. My mother was Jewish. My grandmother was Jewish. My great grandmother was Jewish. We're Jewish all the way back, and I am just as Jewish as anybody else." And she was right. She was 100% right, because you know what? They had kept that tradition, and she lit Shabbat candles, and they didn't eat pork because her mother had taught her we're Jewish, and that's as Jewish as anyone. Your genetics and your race be
Yeah.
damned,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And if you believe in the Bible, if you believe in Judaism as a religion, she's as Jewish gets.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
There is no question there. And if you're, you know, how often do you preach the story of Miriam talking about Moses' wife who was Ethiopian?
Yeah. I maybe had come up once in a sermon when I was going through.
See,
Um,
I really think Christians really need
to look
to
at that.
that's a vivid scene right there.
Yeah. 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 It is. It is.
And that's it tells you something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's something we don't want to nobody wants to talk about.
Yeah.
Moses' wife was a convert.
Yeah.
She was black, and people didn't like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what God says is will blow your socks off. I actually, back when the internet was still young, when I was an undergrad, this was like in 1996, I wrote a blog post on my website on that, and suddenly in one day I got 13,000 hits, which back then was the equivalent of being going viral.
Yeah.
This page, which apparently had Black Site of the Day, had listed my blog post as the Black Site of the Day. And I have this friend I met through the internet who's from rural Georgia, and she tells me that for the past like 20 years she's had printouts of this and been handing them out to preachers and pastors and people. And it's like, yeah, you really want to criticize people who marry black women? You really want to do that? Are you sure?
In the black community, it's more often the black women criticizing the black men who marry white women.
Course.
That's a big deal.
Course.
That's a
Racism,
big deal.
The stupidest thing anyone said. See, this is one of the things that gets me. When you're that gets me about Jews. When you're convinced that you're the victim, and I actually found this out on your Discord. Christians have this whole idea of, oh, the age of martyrs when the Jews killed all those Christians. And it's so real to them. It really is. Oh, we're the victim. And when you're sure you're the victim, oh, I'm carrying that cross. Let me beat you with it. You know, the only place that the words Deus Vult shows up in the Vulgate is where this woman is saying, I believe, to David, God doesn't want the death of evildoers. And imagine the people who today say Deus Vult. I know we're we're almost up. People who say Deus Vult, show them that Bible verse. Oh, you Christian crusaders, Deus Vult, huh?
Well, I gotta run. I got Dave on.
I
I got Dave on your heels here.
I know.
But this was fun. We'll have to talk again. I mean, we only just we probably didn't even get through your list.
We got through my list, but I really do want to hear from you what you think that word poured out.
Well, I just, you know what, when you mentioned it, I did pull up my Bible study, and yeah, it's spilled out. It's literally on the ground.
That's the thing, because if that's the wine, that's a different wine, and people want their Rebbe to be Mashiach ben David. You want him to be Mashiach ben David, even if he's Mashiach ben Yosef.
Well, you should send me a link on those two concepts, because I'm unfamiliar with them, and I'd like to know more. So
I will. Okay.
So good talking to you.
Good talking
and
to you.
I'll send you the recording of this.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.